Okay, hello and welcome guys. So today we will take a quick look at how we can export textures from a software called Substance Painter 2. So this information is easily accessible online, and you can find different export settings for different programs you might be using. If you're working with game engines, you will find out how to use Substance Painter for that, but we will be looking at how we can utilize Substance Painter textures in Maya's Arnold renderer today. So let's just quickly look at the scene I have prepared here. So the files I'm using will be accessible to you, and you can download them if you wanted to follow along with this tutorial. So here I have this treasure chest. It's nothing special. As you can see, most of it is hand-painted textures. But we also have somewhat realistic looking metal as well, with a couple of bumps representing our bolts, I guess. You will also notice that I imported this piece, this model, as a couple of separate pieces so that it's a little bit easier for me to paint them. And I just painted the insides of the treasure chest black because I don't really want to have any color for that. You will see that this is one of the planks, which I can then duplicate for the left part. So this is a character from a comic book. I really liked it, so I wanted to try and model it and texture it. So this is a treasure chest with eyes, and so I didn't import the eyes because they don't really matter too much. I'm just using normal shaders for those. This is a tiny little tooth here, which I think I didn't actually texture, which is fine. So we just have some white texture for this. So let's take a look at how we can export those into Maya. So the first thing you would want to do is to just right-click and go Export Textures. And so you will see that at the moment I'm already sitting in Arnold configuration, so you can change it here. Just click on your config, and we're going for Arnold and not Arnold UDIM. So UDIM is when you have multiple UV maps for your one model. It's getting more popular these days, but we're not going to be using it. So for us, it's just normal Arnold. And for the configuration, so sometimes you might have problems with your diffuse channel. So I've seen people recommend to use another map for Maya. So over here, if you go into your configuration tab and you click on Arnold, I already have this map here, but I'm just going to get rid of it really quickly and show you how to create it. So we just need to create a new RGB map, and we want to copy this name from the previous texture. So this just ensures that when you're exporting your textures, they will have proper names. So your texture will be called something, whatever your mesh is called, whatever shader it's using, and then whatever channel it is. So for us, it will be the same thing, and then just call it color, center. You will see it's complaining about something. It's not a big deal. And on the right, under input maps, we'll just have to find something that is called base color. So we'll just drag it on top, and it's asking us what we want to do with it. If we want to separate the channels, and we'll just go with RGB channels. And after that, those are all the maps that will be exported. So we can go back to the export option, and you will see that you can change the destination for where your textures will be exported to. So I don't have to do it again. I already have it set up, but all you have to do after that is just to select the folder if you wanted to create a new folder. You don't need to change anything else. If you wanted to take a look at the textures that will be rendered out, these are the ones, and you can see that the one we just created is here as well. So that's all good. You can change the dilation or pixels, so that's something that is also known as edge padding, and the larger your the texture size of your object is, the more pixels you should allow for the edge padding. And after that, you can just hit export. It might complain about something. Usually you don't have to worry about anything. You just click OK, or you just click show folder, and you will see all your textures rendered out. So after that, I usually take this folder and put it into the images folder of your Maya project, which I've already done. So this is my Maya project, and I've set up the scene the way I wanted it to be. So you can see at the moment there are no shaders set up. It's just using some standard shaders as far as I can see. So there's a couple of things we will want to do, and the first thing would be, let's go into our settings and just check that we're using the Arnold renderer. And yes, we are. You can change your presets for how large you want this image to be. So I will set it to something like HD 720 for now. If we go under the Arnold renderer, this is where you will set up your camera anti-aliasing settings. So the higher it is, the better resolution or the better quality of the render you will get out of it. So if you wanted to learn more about this and about how to make your render less grainy, less noisy, there is a really good article online from the guys who created Arnold renderer. You should be able to find it quite easily, but it's going to be on Solid Angle's website, section called Removing Noise. So it talks in depth about everything you need to know. So if you have some time, go ahead and read through all of that. The easiest solution for your problems might be just bumping up the camera anti-aliasing section over here, which unfortunately will increase the render size you will be getting. So it depends on how you want to work. If you are working smart, you probably want to read through the article and figure out how to change the settings in accordance with your scene's needs. So we'll just close this for now. And now we need to create a new material for our object over here. So we'll just go into our hypershade. And I've already created one, but I'll show you how to create a new one. So just under Arnold, we will go and find something called AI standard and click on it. Also, we want to import the textures we will be working with. So those are all the textures that we exported from Substance Painter, and I don't need height. I also don't really need the diffuse because I will be using the color. You shouldn't really be getting any problems because I haven't seen any problems with the diffuse textures in quite a while, so hopefully you might not even have to use the color, but basically they're pretty much the same textures. And I'm just going to drag those in here, and you will see, hopefully, that in our scene we can see our shader, our material which we just created, and we can also see all the maps we imported. So I just want to organize them a little bit better. So I'll go and put my diffuse color on top of everything else. The rest don't really matter that much. And what we will be doing now, we will be connecting our channels, our textures to the proper channels. So our color will be going into the color slot over here. So I'm just going to be middle mouse clicking and dragging like this on top of the color. So you will see there is a little plus icon. It means that you can make that connection, and I can put my the weight for this all the way up if I wanted to. You can play around with those weight settings later. So we'll have to do the same with the specula. Actually, I'm just gonna put this down here. Just swap the places. So if we click back on our material, now we just need to find the specula color, and that's where the specula map will go. Just middle mouse and drag it over there, and put the weight up to 1. You might want to change the weighting later a bit as well, to something possibly like 0.8 maybe. It depends on the object. It might look okay in the end. So the roughness will go into our roughness channel over here. Middle mouse and drag as well. Don't have to worry about anything else. Leave the microfacet distribution at what it is at the moment. Another thing, since we're working with a somewhat metallic object, we have some metal in it, we want to use Fresnel as well. So we'll just click on it, and for the Fresnel, we will be using this F0 map, and middle mouse drag it onto reflectance at normal. And the only thing left to set up is our normal map, which will go into the bump mapping channel. So just middle mouse drag it in there as well. And here we need to change one thing really quickly. So instead of using it as a bump, we will be using it as a tangent space normals, which is cool. So that's half of the setup done. And now we need to change the color space for our map. So before that, the setup was a little bit more complicated, where you had to use gamma correction nodes, because there is a little bit of a difference between how Substance Painter 2 and Maya Arnold render the images, or there is also a difference in what files they're using. So you will notice that Arnold will be creating its own file resolution. Oh, sorry, file. So it will kind of be copying the information from our targets and creating something that only Arnold can read. So we'll just click on our color and we'll check if everything is okay. So basically anything that's affecting or influencing the color of your object, like the diffused or the color channel and the specular, those maps will have to be in sRGB. So we don't really have to do anything about them. They are already set up correctly. For the rest of them, anything that is not affecting the color will have to be set to use a raw color space. So let's just do that really quickly. And also any maps that are connected to your material through its out alpha and not out color, you will have to make sure that alpha is luminance is on for those as well. So let's click on this. Let's change the color space to raw, and let's check alpha is luminance over here. So we'll have to do it for all of them. Set it to raw, alpha is luminance. Same with this one. Raw, alpha is luminance is already on for our bump map or normal map. One thing with the normal map as well, we will have to change something else for it. By default, Maya is doing something a little bit crazy. So if we click on it and we go into our attribute editor, yeah, so we'll have to click on the bump 2D node and find the Arnold section in it, and just make sure that you're not using flip R or flip G channel. Sometimes people recommend turning off use derivatives. If you are experiencing some problems with your normal maps, try it out. I haven't noticed anything bad with mine so far, so I'm just going to keep it on. And that's pretty much our setup done. So all we have to do now is to apply the new material to our model. Go right click and assign material to selection. You will notice that you won't really be able to see any changes even if you go into your 6 mode, or sometimes it works like in this case. You'll see that it's quite shiny. And we're using our viewport 2.0, but sometimes with Arnold materials you will notice that it's not actually giving you anything on the screen, and you might have to switch to another renderer just over here. But that's just a preview, so you don't really have to worry about it that much. So we also want to create an environment for this, just to get a little bit of nice reflections happening for the metallic parts. So for that, we'll go under Arnold and our lights. We'll find the sky dome light. And for the color, we'll just plug in an HDR map. And we will still want from Substance Painter, just for now. So usually you can find those maps under in this folder. So it will be in your program files, logarithmic, Substance Painter, resources, shelf, logarithmic, environments, and exterior. Or of course any of the other ones, but their default one is Panorama HDR, so we'll just open this one up. And it has created a sky dome for us. For the intensity, you can leave it as it is for now. You might want to bump up the resolution to 2000 or 3000, so it will ensure that you're getting less grain. Another thing I usually like to change here is the samples, so we'll just bump them all the way up. Cool, I'm starting to feel a little bit of lag in the scene already, but hopefully your computers are a little bit more powerful compared to what I have. I want to turn on my resolution gate now just to see what my render will look like. So you won't see the picture in the render, which is a cool thing. It means that you can actually export it as a PNG or as another targa and use the transparency channel and just create something really cool in Photoshop if you wanted to. So I also want to try and set up my camera in a way that I don't see the gap. So there is a little bit of the gap between the top and the bottom part of the object. I don't really want to see it in the render, so I'm just going to hide it behind this little plank over here. Oops. Another good thing is to create a render camera, of course, which you can actually do from here. So under view, you can find something called create camera from view. So if you're happy with this setup, so in your perspective, you just look at this and you're like, yep, I quite like this, but you still want to be able to, look around the model and change a couple of different things. It might not be ideal to use your perspective camera as your render camera, so we'll go and create a new one. Create camera from view. So perspective 1 will be our new render camera, and we'll just rename it to something a bit more appropriate. Cool, so now we just need to change this in our render settings as well. It will be showing us 2 renderable cameras. I don't really want to be using my perspective anymore. And now we can try and render the scene out and just see what happens. So this was my old broken render, which we can get rid of. Or maybe not, it's fine. So what you want to do is to make sure that you're using the correct camera, and we'll go under render. Render not our current, not the perspective one, but we'll go with render cam. And as you can see, it's reading the TJs and it's converting them to Arnold's special one, which is, I think, .tx. So you can see there is a little bit of a grain here. And I also think I need to fix the material for my pupil of the eye, because I think I accidentally assigned the newly created material to it, which is fine. So another thing for a scene like this, you might want to set up a directional light as well, and just figure out where the light is coming from in the image. So you will just have to kind of look around the sky dome and see where the light source is, and then try and replicate it with your directional light. I'm just gonna pause here and show you the final result. Cool, so this is our final result. Just a little bit grainy, so you can go ahead and bump up your resolution on the image. Try and set up a new light. And just play around with the samples for different things, like you can bump up the anti-aliasing for your camera, and also for all the different channels or different options sitting under the camera anti-aliasing. The same with the sky dome. So if you go here, you can start playing around with those values as well. Also, one bad thing which can happen to you when you're working with Arnold render is sometimes when you start playing with those settings, you might be getting a really good result and everything looks fine, and then out of sudden everything pretty much just breaks, so you're getting very inconsistent results from what you had a second ago, which means that potentially the TX files that Maya just created were somehow broken or a little bit damaged, or there's some type of information that got screwed a little bit. So the way I was able to fix that issue a couple of times was to save the scene if you want it as something else. So I create a new version of this scene. After that, you will just have to go and find your images. So I'll show you what I mean. You will see that here in this folder where I just used to have my target files, there are now new files called .tx files, which is what Maya has created for us, or Arnold has created. So the information stored in here is now stored in here, and those are the files that Arnold is using. So the way I was able to fix this issue a couple of times was just to save that scene as a new scene, close Maya so that it doesn't complain about anything, delete those files, open Maya's file, Maya again, open your scene again, and just re-render and see if it gives you your proper colors, the result you were expecting back, because usually that will fix the issue. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and see you in the next one. We will probably talk about setting up a quick turntable